Hey everyone, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2020 Chevy Traverse, we're going to be showing you how to install the Blue Ox diode wiring kit for towed vehicles. Before we get into that though, let's take a minute, we'll check these out and make sure they're going to be the right setup for you. So whenever you're picking all your stuff out for, to be able to allow you to set your vehicle up and flat tow it behind your motorhome, there's a lot of stuff to choose from, and diode wiring is going to be one of them. And the whole purpose of it is to allow the lighting functions from the back of your coach to get sent to the back of your Traverse. That way people know what's going on, right? So you'll get your turn signals, your brake lights, and your tail lights to not only stay safe, but legal as well. Right off the bat, I do want to address one of the main questions that we get asked all the time in regards to setting up your vehicle to be flat towed, and that's what are the main parts that I'm going to need? And you're going to have a total of 5 of them. Your base plate, which connects to your vehicle and gives you an attachment point. That way you can hook up your tow bar to, which will connect here and then to the back of your coach, being the physical link, keeping everything paired together. Then you're going to have safety cables, which will connect to the base plate, to the hitch on your motorhome, and in case of an unlikely disconnect, you're going to keep everything hooked up. The fourth main part will be tow bar wiring, which will transfer the lighting signals from the back of your coach to the back of your Traverse. And lastly, you are going to have a supplemental braking system, which will hit the brakes in your SUV whenever you hit the brakes in your coach, bringing you to a safe and predictable stop. A diode wiring kit is what I recommend pretty much all the time for just about any vehicle out there when it comes to setting them up to be flat towed. Whether it be this Blue Ox kit, Roadmaster makes a really good kit that's extremely similar to this. Really can't go wrong with either of them. And I say that because once you have these installed, you're not even going to see them there. It's not going to change the look of your vehicle at all. It'll all be hidden behind the taillight assembly and things like that, which makes setup time really fast too. All you have to do is plug them in when you're ready to tow your vehicle, as opposed to, let's say, magnetic lighting, for example, or stick-on type lighting, which shows you'd have to set up every time. You stick them to the vehicle, run your wires all the way up, get them plugged in, take it all apart whenever you're done, store this bundle of wires somewhere, and things like that. So diodes just make everything much more straightforward and simple. Whenever you are ready to hook up to your motorhome, all you have to do is take your cable, plug that into the front of the vehicle, and then the other end, of course, would go to the trailer connector on your coach. All the signals will pass through here and to the back of your vehicle. Now with that said, this particular Blue Ox diode wiring kit does not come with a 6-way round connector or a cable. So if that's parts that you need, let's say for example, some tow bars actually come included with those components. So if that's what you got, great, you don't really need anything extra. But if you do need those parts, you can always pick them up separately. And actually Blue Ox makes a kit where you would get the 6-way round connector and their umbilical. So, definitely look into that if you need to complete the package, so to speak. Other than that, at the end of the day, there's really not much to this. Like I said, diode wiring is definitely the way to go. You plug into the front, plug into the back of the motorhome, and you're done, right? So pretty reliable setup. As far as the installation goes, I'm not gonna lie, on this vehicle, it's relatively involved and somewhat time consuming, just having to route your wires from the front all the way to the back. And unfortunately, you do have to remove the rear fascia on this to get to the wiring that we need to tie our diodes into. So keep that in mind. And I guess I'll mention, if you ever plan on wanting to put a trailer hitch on your vehicle or trailer wiring, if you're going to be installing this yourself or even have someone do it for you, it'd be a great time to do that as well, because the trailer hitches and the wiring, you need to remove the rear fascia too. So you kind of kill a few birds with one stone. If that's something that you don't feel comfortable doing, hopefully we can help you out to kind of build that confidence during the installation. But if you don't want to mess with it at all, I get it. You can always use our dealer locator network to hopefully find a shop that can do it for you. But with that said, why don't we go ahead and get started on it now. We need to first run our wire from the engine compartment down to the front where the connector plugs will be located. And I'm doing this at the same time we're doing our base plate, because with the fascia off, we have a lot more room to work. I want to mention too, if you're going to be installing a charge line kit like we are, it'd be a great time to route that wire as well, because they're going to the same spot. So I'll go ahead, get this dropped down and get it over there. Got our wires dropped on down through this little opening here. They come out here and get routed over. I got them going behind our bumper to where our mounting point is for our connector plug. Can now grab our little rubber boot for our connector plug, slide that over the wires there, and I just like to do one of these deals to keep them up and out of the way. And then we need to strip the ends back, and to do that, just remove about that much insulation and give the wire a good twist to keep them nice and tight. The diode wires here that are stuck together, we'll just carefully cut a little bit there, peel them apart. And with these, I like to kind of just clip the last 1/4 inch or so off. That way if we happen to nick it or anything when we are separating them, we kind of get a fresh start there. But do the same thing for all of these ends. It's time to get our wiring ends hooked up now. So I got our charge line placed in there. If you're setting a charge line up, ideally you want to do that one first because it's easier. So charge line will go in the middle. But with that said, the way these work here is these set screws, you want to take a screwdriver and back them out almost all the way. And there's going to be 4 of them that we're going to be hooking up. And they are labeled. They're kind of tricky to see, but we have TM for taillight, so the brown wire goes there. GD for ground, so the white wire goes there. And let's see, this one is LT for left turn, so the yellow wire plugs into that. And then this one is RT for right turn, so the green wire goes there. So we'll just take our wiring here, put that into the correct terminal. Try not to get any loose little ends hanging out. Push it in place, I'll hold it down, then just tighten up that set screw. We'll just work our way around until we get all of them hooked up here. Once all your connections are made here at the back of the plug, take the boot, cover it up, and usually what I'll do at the very end, once I verify everything is working, I'll come back in here with some silicone and coat it real good to help prevent corrosion. But I want to wait until I know it works, because if you have to get back in here for whatever reason, don't want to have a huge mess to deal with. So let's put this on for the time being and mount up the connector plug here. Back in the engine compartment, we can get our diode wiring grounded. And so what we want to do here is cut just the white wire. Be very careful. You don't want to nick the other wires. Kind of peel them apart here. And the wire that we're going to be working with is the one that's going down to our connector plug. So this end. And we want to strip the insulation back. We're going to take a ring terminal, put that over the bare end of the wire, crimp it down, and this is how we're going to make all of our connections, whether it be a butt connector, a spade terminal, a ring terminal like this. And this is going to get grounded over here on this big ground post. So we'll remove this with a 15mm socket. Just slide that ring terminal over it, and then tighten it back down. As far as the rest of the white wire that's still attached to our harness, we're just going to completely remove that by peeling it off, and we'll probably use it later on. But by doing this, it'll make the rest of the wiring a little bit easier to route too, with the harness not being as thick. I was able to get our wiring routed towards the back of our vehicle, and just comes up along through here. It's kind of tricky to see, it just kind of disappears, but you just drop it down to the underside of our vehicle. Whenever you're doing any routing, make sure and do your best to avoid any hot or moving parts. Moving underneath the vehicle, right here in this area is where our wiring is going to drop down, and we're just going to run it all the way to the back. So it comes along through here. Usually following some factory lines like your brake lines are a pretty safe bet. And you can use zip ties every now and again to keep the wire secure. So it just runs along through here, through this area. And then we'll continue up and over our subframe. It's kind of tricky to see, but it just follows the frame rail there. And this is where it runs through here. And just be careful in this area, you know, with the exhaust here, there's just not a ton of different places to go with this. So we got on top of the heat shield, you know, if you want to put a piece of loom or something over it for an extra layer of protection, you can definitely do that. And this is where our wiring drops out, and we're just going to leave it kind of hang here for the time being. In order to complete our installation and get to the wiring and our taillights and everything, we are going to have to remove the rear fascia. And so since we're right here underneath the vehicle, might as well get this fastener removed, because that's one of the steps to it. So it's a T15 Torx bit. We'll pull that out, and it'll be set up the exact same way on the other side. And honestly, whatever we do to one side in terms of getting the fascia off, it'll be set up the same, so you can do it all over there as well. Now, if you open up your hatch, we're going to have a few fasteners here. One of them in this corner be a T15 Torx bit. Pull that out. And then these two covers, just take a little trim tool or something, a little pick, open them up. And you got two 7mm head screws. I don't know what's going on with this one here, but change out. Get those removed. We can move to our wheel well liners. Since we're going to be working in this area, getting everything removed, I put some painter's tape just so we don't, accidentally scratch anything. But with that said, along this edge in the wheel well, we're going to have 4 T15 fasteners. We'll get all these pulled out here real quick. Then you can take the liner, just kind of peel that back. It's about there. And then we have this little trim piece, all right, that we want to pop free. And on the back side of it, there will be some little tabs that you can kind of squeeze in on. while you're pulling out on this, and you only need to go up to about here. There's an example there of that tab. So I was just coming in from the back and kind of squeezing in on both sides, making it smaller. That'll allow this to pull out here. Right here, there's a 7mm head screw holding the fascia on. So we'll get that removed. If you can have someone help you with this part, definitely makes it much easier, but we can get the fascia removed. So what I like to do is just kind of work it and start in the corner. And sometimes these come right off, but there's some little clips in here. It looks like someone's been in here before, to be honest with you. But you can kind of work them clips out. A lot of times, they'll just come free. Just continue to work this around here. I'll get this released, and we have some wiring here that we're going to need to disconnect. So you got that big red tab, you pull back on it, you can push down on the middle, that'll separate it, and it looks like we're all clear here, so we'll just set our fascia off to the side. Now we can test our wiring to see what function is responsible for what. So this piece of wire runs up into our tail light. There's some tape on it, I removed it, and we're looking for our tail light signal. And I found that. I'm just using a test light here. This purple wire with the gray stripe, if I probe it here, we got power. And if we turn the tail lights off, we don't have power. So we know that's a signal. Now we can find our brake light signal. So if you have someone hit the brakes in the car, we can check our wires here. And if you let off the brake, we know it's it there. So he's back on. Just a double check. All right, let off. All right, so it looks like the yellow wire with the blue stripe is going to be our brake light, which will control our stop and turn. And that purple with the gray stripe, that'll be our tail light signal. We're going to have to trim our wires, the two that we identified there. So I'm just going to cut those, and then each end, and strip the insulation back a little bit and crimp on a spade terminal there. It's the same exact thing for our 3 remaining ends. So what I've done, just kind of used electrical tape, tape up some of our wiring to make it easier to work with and everything. And now you can grab your diodes. On the diode, you'll have one side with a single terminal labeled out, another side with 2 terminals labeled in. You want to take the outside single terminal, plug that in to our factory wires running up into our tail light. And then we'll just go color for color here. Like that. And then what I've done, if you kind of look down here, we're going to have our wiring that we just kind of let hang, right? So we had a yellow and a brown and a green. I separated the green wire and ran that through our trailer hitch to the other side. And I also took, the kit's going to come with an extra piece of brown wire, or you can use the extra white wire that we held on to, whatever you want to do. But I use a brown. And so what we're going to do here, on our yellow one, I stripped that back, put on a spade terminal. On the brown one, I cut that a little bit shorter. All right. And we'll take our extra brown that's going over to the passenger side. Strip one end back there. We're going to twist these two ends together. Get them nice and tight. And then crimp on a butt connector. I decided to upgrade to a heat shrink style one because the ends will seal up and help against corrosion, things like that a little bit better. But the one that they give you in the kit will work just fine. Just tape it up real good at the end. We'll slide that over both ends there. Crimp it down. And then I got, probably 5-6 inches of a piece that we cut off, other brown wire. Crimped on a spade terminal. Strip this end back. Put that into the other end of the butt connector. Get it crimped down. And with this being our heat shrink style, we'll seal up the ends. So we'll take our new wires, and since the new brown is our taillight signal, we'll plug that into the diode that has a factory purple and gray stripe on it, since that is our taillight signal. We'll set that up. And since the yellow and blue is for our stop and turn, we'll plug our new yellow wire into there. I got everything secured, so I just secure the diodes to the factory wiring. And one thing I like to do is just take some silicone and apply it to where the terminals get connected, just to help keep them sealed and help against vibration and stuff. But from there, like I said, that extra brown wire that we set up and that green one from our main harness runs through our trailer hitch. If you don't have a factory hitch, you can just run it along the back of the car all the way to the passenger side. On the passenger side, it's set up pretty much the exact same way that the driver's side is, really with one exception. That's just the color of wires. So we'll run through that. So the factory gray wire with a brown stripe, that's going to be our taillight signal. So we got our new brown wire plugged into that diode. Then the factory brown wire with the green stripe, that is for our stop and turn. So we have our new green wire plugged in to that diode. So what I'll do now, just like the other side, get these secured up, sealed, and then we can test everything. Before we put our fascia and everything back together, probably a good idea to test everything to make sure that it's working properly. So I'm hooked up to a test box here, just simulating a motorhome. Keep in mind, you can use your RV, but if it has any issues, it might mislead you into thinking it's something you did wrong on the vehicle side. But with that said, let's run through everything. We'll try out our taillight signal, our left turn, our right turn, and our brake lights. Now that we've verified everything is indeed working, we can go ahead, get our fascia reinstalled the opposite way that we removed it. Now that we got our fascia all put back together, that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Blue Ox diode wiring kit for towed vehicles on our 2020 Chevrolet Traverse.